Today, we're gonna do something a little bit unusual. I'm gonna taste a tea that I didn't like when I got it in. Now, it was one of those situations where I cupped the tea, I enjoyed it when I tasted the sample, and then when the actual product came in, I was concerned there might have been a little bit of a bait and switch where I was sold something different than I cupped. Did check in with the farmer, and they're pretty trustworthy, so they did say this is exactly what I cupped. I went back and tasted the sample and it had transformed a bit from what I remembered. So sometimes when you go and you taste something, what you were eating or drinking before you tasted it has a huge impact on how you perceive the flavor to be in the moment. I tried to give it another chance and another chance and another chance. And every time I've had it, I've just been like, not super interested in this tea. So I'm gonna drink this tea that I know that I'm not super interested in, but this is a 2021 harvest. So I tasted it last year, I tasted it the year before, and now we're in 2024. I'm gonna try and give it a go. Let's see what happens. So this is what the tea looks like. The farmer's calling it honey black. It's a red tea or a crimson tea. For the North American market, of course, they're calling it a black tea. Dry aroma, I get a lot. Like I'm getting chocolate. I'm getting, what kind of florality is that? Rose. Somewhat reminiscent of a Maofeng from Keeman. I like to set my kettle for 99 degrees or 100 degrees centigrade. 99 is nice because then the steam doesn't evaporate all your water while you're sitting there kind of making decisions. But 100 is technically what we're going for. Gonna give the tea a rinse. And I've decided to gong fu. I have made this more like an English style, longer brew. Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm getting some really nice aromatics. Beautiful color. The liquid even has sort of a silky quality to it. I'm tasting under extraction, which is very possible. I mean, that's the one thing about a gongfu is that first steep is arguably somewhat of an under extraction assessment, and then seeing if you're getting those aromatics and less about body. That's really good. Maybe it just needed 3 years to rest. That's lovely. When you think about Guangdong, you don't really, the tea as they're calling it locally, Canton honey black, isn't really a tea that stands out in the literature. You don't really read much about it. You could call it rare, I guess. That's a really powerful honey aromatic. And I know they haven't scented it, but I can totally understand why they've named it this way. I'm tasting a bit of malt that I get in a sometimes there's like a thin malt quality that I don't like in a red tea. That's just, there's a hair of it there, but it's just, in this tea, it's just making up a part of the flavor spectrum. So I'm getting mostly that honey and sort of like a nice rich texture. Let's see if it has any more life. I mean, if all the good stuff comes out in that first infusion, then maybe it's still not a very exciting tea. Let's try that second infusion. It's a little murky, but in a good way. Like I'm not seeing a lot of sediment or anything. It's very well put together. Like it's a beautiful, beautiful tea. When you analyze the wet leaf, you can see very careful production. You can hold it by the stem and you see that intact bud set. It's just a good sign that the care has been there during production. They haven't busted up the leaves. Bit of rose and sort of sun-dried tomato, salt. Yeah, lovely. I'm really impressed. Maybe this tea just needed time. Honestly, in 2022, it's just been sitting in our inventory for so long because after I bought it, I was just like, this is just going to be more rich, chocolatey, honey. You're going to get a nicer texture. I think this is a very easy to love tea at this point, which again, it's a surprise. Really great color on that third infusion. Look at that. Let's see why they call these red teas at origin. In this final extraction, and I wouldn't say it's final, I think there's still actually more love. And I have to remind myself, one of the ways you can tell that just your brewing technique is just wrong for the tea is try cold brewing it. If you cold brew the tea, you're gonna taste whether or not that tea's got something interesting to give you. And you can tell if your hot brewing technique is just off, like you need to change something. Like maybe you need to increase the dose, or you need to switch around not just the dose of tea, but the amount of water you're using. So this is my final one. This is gonna be my fourth infusion. Look at that. Fourth extraction. Still getting some really vivid orange. That's the end of this tea for me. I took that actually to 40 seconds instead of 35 at the end there. And I would say that you can taste sort of the tea getting more, not bland, but you can taste that it's you've coaxed what you're going to coax out of the tea. There you go. So we are going to sell this tea then. It's going to be a Landrace honey, and it tastes better now than it did last year or the year before, or when I first got the actual tea after I'd cupped the samples. That first sample that I cupped, I was really stoked about, and then yeah, don't want to rehash everything, but I'm happy I did this. Lovely.